A fakir girl, a kind-hearted Jinn, and a love that crossed the boundaries of humans and realms. In a quiet corner of the village, beneath a sacred peepal tree, sat Jaiba every morning. She would lift her small bundle and set off on her daily journey. Though her body was draped in torn old clothes, her eyes held a different kind of light, like an unheard melody, an incomplete prayer. Jaiba begged for a living, but never with lowered eyes. She would smile with dignity as if saying, "I am helpless, but I am not broken." One day, she wandered a little beyond the village where there was an old dry well, long unused. Exhausted, Jaiba sat beside it. The heat was intense. She peered into the well, hoping to feel a bit of coolness. Just then, a blue mist began to rise from the well. Squinting, Jaiba saw a tall, glowing Jinn emerging from the smoke. His face resembled that of a human, but his eyes held the loneliness of centuries. Jaiba didn't flinch. She said, "If you want to harm me, there's nothing left for me to protect." The Jinn was startled. "You're not afraid of me?" "I am a Jinn." Jaiba smiled and replied, "Fear comes from hunger, from loneliness. I see that same loneliness in your eyes, the one I carry within me." The Jinn was silent for a while, then softly said, "My name is Firoz. I've been trapped in this well for centuries. No one ever called me, until you came." From that day on, Jaiba visited him every day. Sometimes she brought bread, sometimes just her words. Firoz the Jinn learned something new each time: human language, laughter, songs. Gradually, he began to feel that Jaiba was someone different, someone he waited for. And in Jaiba's heart too, an unseen bond began to form. She had started fixing her hair and adjusting her scarf before coming near the well. Sometimes she would even bring a flower, maybe for that Jinn. Gradually, the layers of emotion began to unfold, yet the story remained incomplete, like a sweet dream that kept drifting on. Days passed, seasons changed. In the scorching heat, when sweat trickled down Jaiba's forehead, Firoz the Jinn would fan her with his palm. If she got drenched in the rain, he would dry her clothes with his magical light. But the feeling between them wasn't part of any spell. It was real. Jaiba began to like the depth in Firoz's eyes, his quiet words, his still presence. Often she would ask herself, "Am I falling in love with a Jinn? Is that even right?" And on the other side, Firoz saw himself changing too. For centuries, he had been just a Jinn, a fulfiller of desires, but without desires of his own. Now something had begun to blossom inside him. Just for Jaiba's smile, he performed new magic, tricks, teaching flowers how to speak, showing water how to change colors, and then he would search for his reflection in her innocent eyes. One evening, when Jaiba arrived late, Firoz grew restless. As soon as he saw her, he asked angrily, "Why? Are you so late?" Jaiba smiled. "You're a Jinn, you have everything except patience. Now I understand." They both laughed. And that day, for the first time, Firoz held her hand. No sparkle, no magic, just a human moment, new for a centuries-old Jinn. Now Jaiba would bring him small things every day: a bangle, a red ribbon, a clay doll made in the village, and Firoz would treasure them as if they were priceless. One day Jaiba asked, "If I'm human and you're a Jinn, is our togetherness even possible?" Firoz looked into her eyes and said, "If feelings are true, then the walls of form and origin crumble. I'm already tied to you, Jaiba. You are my world now." That day the clouds had been heavy since morning, and the wind carried something new in the air. There was a strange kind of silence in the air. As always, Jaiba had dressed up and was about to leave for the well when a village woman called out, "Dear, my daughter-in-law is unwell. Could you please help?" Jaiba paused. She thought, Firoz must be waiting, but her heart wouldn't let her ignore the sick woman. She told herself, "I'll be a few hours late, he'll understand." She went inside, helped the old woman, fetched some water, warmed some bread, and time simply slipped away. By the time she stepped out again, the sun had already set. Jaiba rushed toward the well, but Firoz wasn't there. The whole place was silent. The old stone, the people tree. Everything was the same except the absence. She wasn't used to that. She sat quietly and gently took out the peacock feather from her pocket. But tonight it didn't shimmer. Maybe Faraz was far away, or maybe, just like she felt him, he too was feeling her absence. For the first time, Jaiba understood. Faraz had become a need of her heart, someone whose presence brought a natural smile, whose silent company gave peace. She sat there for a long time. Moments passed. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then another, and suddenly, she felt a soft warmth in her palm. The peacock feather began to glow again. A familiar, gentle voice floated in the air. "You came late, but your waiting was true." Jaiba turned her head, and there he was, Faraz. The same moist eyes, the same silence, but this time no words were needed. He wiped her tears with his thumb and said, "I never left, Jaiba. I just wanted you to realize. I now live inside your heart, closer than even this place." Jaiba said nothing. She simply held his hand. In another part of the village, an old man named Babuji lived alone in a small house. He often stayed lost in thought, startled by the smallest things. He too would sometimes wander to that old well, but he never noticed Jaiba or Faraz. He remained busy with his chores, unaware of the strange love blooming silently beside him. They lived away from the hustle and bustle, but one day, something happened. As Babuji was passing by the well, his attention suddenly shifted to Jaiba and Faraz. They were sitting together. Jaiba was laughing, and Faraz was looking at her as if she was his entire world. Babuji couldn't comprehend what was happening. A sense of fear spread in his eyes. What was going on here? He thought to himself. He stood from a distance, watching them. An old man's eyes are sharp, and he saw much more than he ever had before. Flustered, he hurried back to the village. As soon as he entered his house, a strange shiver ran through his body. Without a word, he quietly entered. The villagers noticed. Babuji had never been so silent. He seemed restless, staring out the window, as though deep in thought or searching for something. "Babuji, are you okay?" a villager asked. Babuji lowered his head and said nothing. He just walked around the house, unable to settle. The villagers were puzzled, wondering why he wasn't speaking to anyone, as if he were grappling with some deep wound. The next day, Babuji tightly shut the door to his house and didn't speak to anyone. His face had taken on an unfamiliar look. Thinking about Jaiba and Faraz had shaken him. He felt like there was a bigger mystery that he had never understood. It felt like an old story that would never end. Jaiba and Faraz still sat by the well, but neither of them knew how this would affect the outside world. After Babuji's silence and unease, it didn't take long for them to realize that someone from the outside had discovered their secret. This realization weighed heavily on their hearts. Faraz asked Jaiba, "Are we really doing something wrong?" Jaiba looked at him, her eyes filled with the same old trust. "No, Faraz, we are just who we are, and there is no need for us to be afraid." But Babuji's silence, that silence carried an unspoken burden. A new question arose. Was their fear just a personal feeling or something more? Were they witnessing an old story repeat itself? One they never got the chance to truly understand? One day, as Jaiba was finishing her daily chores and heading toward the well, she suddenly heard Babuji's voice. He was standing a little distance away, and there was a seriousness on his face that she had never seen before. "Jaiba," Babuji called. "Wait, I need to talk to you." Jaiba was slightly startled, but she slowly walked toward him. Taking a deep breath, he asked, "Why do you go to that well, to that Jinn? Don't you realize he's not good for you?" Jaiba's heart began to pound, but she kept herself calm. Softly, she replied, "Babuji, he is not just a Jinn, he is Faraz, he helps me. He has never hurt me. He is there when I need someone to talk to, when I feel alone." Babuji looked down and sighed deeply, his face even more serious now, as if an old nightmare had returned. "Jaiba, you don't understand. I say this only for your well-being. He is a Jinn, and though he may be attached to you, he is not of your world. Your bond, it can never truly be complete. Jaiba felt a moment of dizziness, but her resolve held firm. Babuji, I know he is different, but is that a reason for us to stay apart? Shouldn't we do what brings peace to our hearts? Can a true bond only exist within one kind? Babuji's face tensed further, but his voice softened. You are very wise, Jaiba, but you cannot understand the world through the eyes of my age. He is magic, and magic is never real. You have a real life ahead of you. He lives in an imaginary one. Jaiba stayed silent for a moment, her eyes filled with deep questions. She knew that somewhere deep inside, she too had begun to feel the fear Babuji carried, and yet she was ready to fully understand her connection with Faraz. Babuji, I know he is different, and I am human, but have you ever felt that when a bond forms from the heart, it becomes impossible to confine it to the shape of this world? Faraz is my companion, and I understand him. I don't live in the world he comes from, but I feel him in my heart. Can't you understand that? There was a faint mist of tears in Babuji's eyes, one he tried to hide. He lowered his head and said, quietly, I wanted you to think like me, Jaiba, but your words, they touch the heart. I love you, my child, and I fear that this world will not understand him like you do. And that's what frightens me. Jaiba gently held his hand. I understand, Babuji, and I will never leave you alone. But my heart speaks the truth, and I try to listen to it. Babuji looked into her eyes. Today there was a stirring within him, a realization that Jaiba's path and his may not be the same. But still, he stood with her, because he loved her even more than a father loves a daughter. Jaiba smiled and softly said, Thank you, Babuji, for trying to understand me. I know you wish only the best for me, but for me, Faraz and I are happy in our little world. Just know that I'm okay. Babuji stayed silent for a while, then finally said, Just stay happy, Jaiba, and never take the wrong path. They both stood quietly. Between them a silence had settled, thin, fragile, but filled with understanding. In time, that silence would grow into something deeper, a bond of mutual trust, cautious yet enduring. Since that day, a faint layer of silence existed between Jaiba and Babuji. They spoke to each other with warmth, but now there was a subtle caution in their words.
Jaiba still visited the well, but now with cautious glances around, wondering if Babuji was watching. Faraz noticed the shift and asked gently if something was wrong. She admitted, Babuji is afraid that I'll lose myself in this path, or lose him. Faraz remained silent for a moment. I never wanted to hurt you, Jaiba, but I don't want to lose you either. You haven't lost me, she replied. But now nothing feels simple anymore. I see everything, through Babuji's eyes, my own heart, and through what we have together. That same evening, Babuji visited the old village Malvi. He poured his fear into words. That girl, she meets a Jinn. She calls him her friend. Maybe something more. This can't be right. The Malvi, solemn and wise, responded, This world runs deep, Babuji. A bond between Jinn and human often holds more restlessness than peace. Try to guide her, but don't force her. The heart cannot be chained. Back home, Babuji's words grew more distant, more cautious. Jaiba felt it, not just from him, but from Faraz too. Even at the well, the laughter faded, the spark in Faraz's eyes dimmed. Then one day Faraz asked, If I go away, will everything be okay again? Jaiba was stunned. How can you even think that? Because around you now, there's more fear than faith. There is more peace, less comfort, Faraz said softly. There is now a shadow between you and Babuji, and I am becoming that shadow. Jaiba's eyes welled up. I don't want to lose you, Faraz, but I need Babuji too. And if his fear ever breaks us apart, I don't know what I'll do. That night, Jaiba couldn't sleep for a long time. The soft moonlight poured through her window, and the wind near the distant well seemed to call her. Early morning, while the village lanes were still asleep, Jaiba quietly walked towards the well. Firoz was already sitting there as if he had sensed her restlessness. She sat beside him in silence for a while, then said, "We have to do something, Firoz. Staying silent and enduring everything is weakening our relationship." Firoz looked at her. His eyes held the same tenderness that always comforted Jaiba. "I've been thinking the same," Firoz replied. "If we continue like this, we'll slowly drift away from the bond we ourselves created. We need to choose a path, even if it's a hard one." "Then let's make a decision," Jaiba said softly. They sat there for a long time, thinking. Many paths lay ahead, but each demanded a sacrifice. Firoz said, "If I want, I could take you with me into my world, a place with no rules, no fear. But that's not your world, Jaiba. You might lose your identity there. And if I stay here," Jaiba said, "I'll lose you. And I don't want that either. I want both our worlds to meet, even if it's in a small space, but a space that is ours." Firoz replied, "Then let's make a promise. We'll stay apart for some time. You will try to earn Babuji's trust, and I will try to adapt to this world. If, despite the distance, we can still feel each other, then we'll meet again in a new form, without fear." Jaiba held his hand. "It will be difficult, but it's necessary," Firoz said. Jaiba closed her eyes, and for the first time she realized that in love, sometimes distance is a test. And perhaps this was the turning point where their bond would only grow deeper. While returning from the well, Jaiba looked back several times, but Firoz was no longer there. He had promised to stay away for a while, but staying away wasn't easy. For the first few days, Jaiba buried herself in daily routines, house chores, neighborhood gossip, voices of people. But something always felt incomplete. One day, while making rotis, the pan burned and tears rolled down Jaiba's eyes. No one else noticed, but her heart clearly asked, "Firoz, where are you?" After that, she decided to change something. She began making tea for Babuji every morning, sitting with him, listening to his stories. Slowly, his face began to soften. He started smiling again, and sometimes, while telling old tales, he would affectionately run his hand through Jaiba's hair. One night, Babuji asked, "You don't go to the well anymore?" Jaiba stayed silent, then smiled and said, "Now everything is inside the heart, Babuji." Babuji said nothing, but Jaiba saw a gentle thought flicker across his face. Meanwhile, Firoz was also changing. He was trying to understand the worldly life he had always kept away from. He started mingling with people, helping find lost children, reviving dried gardens. He was no longer just Jaiba's shadow. He was becoming part of the rhythm of this world. But after every task, he would return to the well, sit on the same rock where Jaiba once sat, close his eyes, and feel a whisper. "I'm here, Firoz. You're not alone." One evening, when the sky turned orange and the breeze carried a light chill, Jaiba sat alone on the rooftop. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice, soft, delicate. "I missed you." Jaiba closed her eyes and smiled. Tears welled up, but she gave no reply, because she now knew that there was no need for words. Love no longer needed to be spoken. Distance was no longer a barrier. It had become a bridge that slowly brought them back to each other. Days passed. Seasons changed, and both Jaiba and Firoz grew stronger in their own worlds. Jaiba gradually won Babuji's heart. They would now sit together, talk, drink tea, and sometimes even go on walks. In Babuji's eyes, there was not just affection for Jaiba anymore, but trust. One day, Babuji himself said, "Daughter, if he returns, I want to meet him. I want to see the one you're so deeply connected to." Jaiba's eyes sparkled. That very evening, she went to the well after many weeks. She sat quietly and closed her eyes without saying a word. A soft breeze rustled the air. When she opened her eyes, Firoz was standing before her. He looked the same, with the same gentle smile. But something had changed. There was understanding in his eyes, of the world, and of Jaiba. "You've come back," Jaiba said softly. "Because now you're ready. And so am I." She held his hand. "Babuji wants to meet you." Firoz paused for a moment, then said, "Then let's show him that even a Jinn can be trustworthy." The next day, Babuji stood at the door. Jaiba arrived with Firoz. For a few moments, everything was silent. Then Babuji softly said, "If you're the one who taught my Jaiba how to smile, I will accept you as my son." Firoz bowed his head and replied, "I will never let your daughter—" "Break, sir." Babuji held his hand and invited him inside. One evening, Jaiba and Firoz sat beneath the old peepal tree outside the village, the same place where they had first met. The wind was blowing softly. Jaiba rested her head on Firoz's shoulder. "There's no fear anymore," she said. Firoz smiled and looked at the sky. "This world is mine too now, because it has you."